Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the 2020 podcast, Canada's #1 optometry podcast. And more importantly, welcome to the penultimate episode of the Future of Canadian Optometry series presented by Aequus Pharma here on the 2020 podcast. This is the fifth of six installments, the fifth of six interviews that I'm doing with leaders from various organizations across Canada, organizations that have a footprint within the Canadian optometric market and the industry, generally speaking, large players in the industry, right? So we're talking FYI doctors, Specsavers, Iris, LensCrafters, which is going to be today's interview. So if you haven't heard the previous four interviews, I highly encourage you go take a listen with Dr. Al Elsefer from FYI Doctors, Dr. Darian Angle from Iris, Mr. Bill Moyer from Specsavers. All of these interviews have been valuable and I think truly insightful into what the future of a Canadian optometry is going to look like from the perspective of these different leaders in different organizations. And what I've said along the way is that some of these guests have been very candid, very open to discussion, open to facing these questions head on, and open to actually answering the question that I'm asking. And some guests are not so open, right? And it's been interesting to hear your feedback as these episodes have been rolling out, to hear feedback from people who are listening, from my colleagues, to tell me this person was open, this person was not so open. And I really appreciate that feedback. I appreciate you sharing. As always, as I always make the request, please do share this with our colleagues across the country, whether you post it on Instagram, post a link on LinkedIn, Facebook, send a text with the link to your friends so they can tune in, whether they're watching on Facebook, on YouTube, or listening on Spotify or on Apple or Stitcher, wherever you listen, because I think all of these conversations are really valuable. Ultimately, what I would love for everyone to take away from this is that we all need to be collaboratively, as optometrists, as colleagues, pushing in the right direction, pulling in the right direction, however you want to look at it, and making sure that the public has the highest possible perception of our profession and what we do and the service we provide. So this episode, the fifth of the six episodes, is with Mr. Alfonso Cerullo, who is the president of LensCrafters and 4Eyes. Of course, LensCrafters being one of the biggest retail brands in North America, and of course the biggest one under the EssilorLuxottica banner. And having Mr. Alfonso Cerullo on was very interesting, sharing some really valuable insights. One, I'm going to just tell you right off the top, where I love that Alfonso shared that optometrists have the power, we have the power to decide which direction a profession is going and which corporation we want to work with, whether we want to work independently. Ultimately, we have the power. So if we make a decision to work with a certain organization that may not be driving the profession in the right direction, that's on us. But if we make the decision to work in a certain direction to make sure the perception of our profession is always elevated, that's again on us, that's our responsibility. So without giving away too much from this interview, here is the conversation with Mr. Alfonso Cerullo. I hope you enjoy it. Mr. Alfonso Cerullo, thank you so much for taking the time to join me here on the 2020 podcast, in particular for this very special set of conversations that we're having that I've called the Future of Canadian Optometry. So thank you very much for joining me here.
Thank you, 2020 podcast, and thank you, Dr. Harber, for the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. Alfonso, you probably know this now. A few months back, I put sort of an invitation, we can call it, out there on the podcast to invite leaders like yourself and from other organizations to come on to share their thoughts about what's going on in our profession right now. I asked every guest at the beginning of each interview that I'd love it if you could be as candid and open as possible to share your thoughts on what you think is going on these days. And I start every guest with the same question. Now, from your perspective as president of LensCrafters and 4Eyes, what do you think is the current state of optometry in Canada today?
First of all, I have to say that from a business perspective, Canada is a very strong market for us. And looking back to the last months, this year, and also starting from middle of last year, we are doing very well. So it's a very solid market. It's a very strong market, and we're very happy to be there. Of course, we are also experiencing some trends that started a little bit early here in North America, many related to the doctor, supply. There is a strong need of doctor, and probably this is a potentially, if we don't handle this carefully, could be a potential challenge for the Canadian market. Yeah.
And as optometry as a profession, would you say, from what you've seen in Canada, particularly, that the profession itself, the service providers, optometrist perspective, do you think that it's strong, it's growing, it's doing well, or do you see some pitfalls or some challenges right now?
Look, there are several type of challenges. Of course, we cannot forget the COVID. The COVID-19 starting from 2020 has been really a strong element of disruption for all of us, and for any kind of professional in this market. So including the ODs. All of us have been, let me say, out there trying to rethink how to do the things that we used to do in a different way, and also technology played a strong role, during this year. As a result, so people change their mindset, personally, and also the ODs. So the work-life balance became even more, a very, very important element in the life of people and in the life of doctors. And of course, this generate some change and some disruption in the industry. On top of those that I just mentioned previously, let me say, of the lack of supply. So we need more doctors. We know that there are more practice that are growing. There are new players coming into the market. So the demand of doctors, is going to grow. And let me say, together with this different need that the people have of work-life balance, this can generate some disruption. But as I said before, technology can come to, in our favor, and like the teleoptometry, and remote care. For sure, this could be an element that can mitigate this potential risk, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's definitely something we're going to touch on in a little bit. But you used the term disruption there a couple of times. That actually was going to be my next question, was related to disruption and the various disruptive forces. Of course, COVID was, as you mentioned, maybe the biggest global disruptive force that we've faced, together. But here in Canada, what other forces would you say are potentially disruptive right now? We hear a lot about consolidation and new players and e-commerce. Which of those do you feel is maybe playing a bigger role? And what do you think optometrists should be looking for?
Look, of course, all the things that Dr. Harbier that you mentioned, these are all there. Are all things that we know in the market. There are new players that are coming out there that have their own strategy. E-commerce for sure is playing a big role. But I think that considering how important is the eye care, the vision care, one of the most important element that we should look very carefully is the availability of the doctors, the number of doctors that we have in the market. Most likely better than me that looking at North America at all, because LensCrafters operates in US and in Canada, but looking at overall at North America, we know that there are on average 1,700, a little bit less, a little bit more every year, that new grads, are joining the community, are joining the family. And when you look at the number of doctors that every year used to retire, you are almost on the same range. You have 1,600, 1,700. So in terms of, let me say, head counts, so number of people, number of doctors that are available to serve the community, we are almost there. But then there is really a material element in terms of work-life balance, that is reducing, the availability and the access to the care, to the entire market, to the entire community. And together with the fact that there are more doors, yes, there are new players coming, but there are also private equities, corporate business that want to open, new practice in the market. This, on one hand, is something very good for us, because it means that this industry is very healthy. There are new operators that want to come. But what is important is to making sure, which is the final goal of all of us, that we are continuous giving access to the care, we are continuous giving high quality vision care to the final patient. So we need to make sure that we make, let me say, appealing to new people, new young, potential doctors, this profession, the doctors and the ODs. So we need to work with the schools and making sure that, the school of optometry are very visible. There are more doctors that are joining them. And we are supporting ASCO in all the way possible. One of the last campaign, Optometry Gives Me Life, we've been a leading supporter of this campaign, just to make sure that the new generation see the optometrist as a very solid, strong profession from a business standpoint, from a professional standpoint, but they can be very instrumental in serving the community, for the access to the care and give the gift of sight to the people. So I guess, and I think, I strongly believe that as long as we have enough doctors and the doctor community is strong out there, okay, all the other elements that can be disruptive are mitigated. That's what I think.
There's been a lot of talk about, during this series of conversations that I've had, a fair amount of talk about the demand or the potential lack of supply, if you want to call it that, of optometrists. I know you touched on a couple of things, making the profession seem desirable and attractive to potential candidates and students who may be going into that path. And that's actually one of the questions I'll probably be asking you again towards the end of the interview. But do you feel that having more schools is part of the answer?
I don't know if is a matter of the capacity of the schools, okay, and see if we need more schools. For sure, there are some states, at least in the US over here, areas that are not covered by a school. And this, of course, can, facilitate the access, to the schools and making sure that the people choose to go, and choose an optometry school as, the school that they want to follow, for sure. But I think what we need to do, even more than more school, is to create a strong awareness about this profession, making sure that when the student out of the high school have to decide, they know that there is really a strong profession out there that the market needs. There is a strong demand. Is really a good moment to join this industry. And these are the things that we need to make sure from everywhere that these new potential doctors are knowledgeable, and they know, and they have this awareness that the doctor and the ODs, the optometrists, is something that really can be good for them. I guess that now the optometry doesn't have the same level of awareness in the people that should choose a school that other type of profession has.
There, as part of that conversation of there being not enough doctors, some have suggested through these conversations that there should be more schools, there should be more acceptance of students, and therefore a greater output of ODs on the other side of it. I will say within the OD community, there's some concern that if that's the case, then it lowers the bar to entry and therefore lowers potentially the quality of the professional that's being put out there, and then devalues almost the profession in a way if there's now potentially an oversupply of ODs at some point. Do you feel that that's a legitimate concern? Is that something that may happen?
Oh my God, no. But I think I have had several opportunity to talk with the schools. The schools of optometry will never allow that. They will never ever rise, the bar down to let more people get in. It's something that I don't think that is going to happen. All the schools that I had the opportunity to speak to, they always made this point. So it's more a matter of having more people, trying to start this school, trying to start this professional, trying to become optometrist, rather than saying, okay, considering that we don't have much, let's raise the bar down. I don't think that this is something that is going to happen. Is a risk. I don't think it's happening, and I really hope that it is not going to happen. honestly.
So the core question, Alfonso, that I posed when I put that initial invitation, the call out months ago to the various organizations in our industry, the core question was, what is your organization doing to support the profession of optometry as a whole, to help the profession in Canada to grow and thrive in the future? So I'd like to know from your perspective, president of the LensCrafters, what would you say LensCrafters, or if you're willing to speak beyond that to Luxottica as a whole, is the organization doing to support optometry?
Yes, so of course, we just a quick introduction. We know that LensCrafter is part of Essilor-Luxottica Group. Essilor-Luxottica Group is a new company that is coming from the integration of Essilor and Luxottica. Okay, so it's a really likely the bigger player on a global scale in this industry. And LensCrafter is the optical retail chain here in North America, a corporate retail chain. So we are part of a vertical integrated business, and all we do is all about, spectacle, eye care, instruments. We really round the industry, trying to be a player, an open player, to elevate, let me say, the industry as a whole. Even because of the position that we have, being the leader of the industry, we really strive to let this industry grow. Because only if the industry grow, we can grow in terms of business. Looking at LensCrafter, is our biggest optical retail chain in North America. We have overall 1,000 stores split between United States and Canada and Puerto Rico. And all we do, is to making sure that we can provide an high quality eye care and high quality eyewear. Okay, that's what we do. If you look our brand value proposition, we exactly this. We want to really set the standard, in the industry, to making sure that every patient, every day, in every stores, can have this high quality eye care and eyewear. We also say normally, I keep just 10 seconds on this one just to create a sort of background before I answer the question. We always also say, this is something public that we have always sharing in the market. We want to be the trusted optical retailer, in the community. So the trust is something very, very important for us. And you build trust, thanks to many things that you have to do as an optical retailer. So good stores, good equipment, good product, good environment, but mainly a good doctor. So when you look at the community and you want to be a trusted optical retailer, the doctor is essentially one of the, let me say, the main character, of what we are doing. So we work around it to making sure that the doctor is very visible in the community and he really can showcase the high quality service that he can provide. So at the end of the question, what do we do? Okay. First of all, we are always committed to making sure that we have always a cutting-edge store. Our remodeling, this is the way how we call it, remodeling, relocation, new stores is something that is part of our strategy, is a constant element. We are talking really huge investment in terms of CapEx, and this is one of the elements. So doctors that want to join us, they can see basically that are joining a company that is really looking at the store as a key element of the community to put them in position to showcase, an high quality journey. First one. Second one, when a doctor join, let me say, us, in both cases, if it is an employee, okay, where is allowed by law, okay, or if it's a sublease, a doctor that is joining but is a completely independent doctor, at which we are subleasing part of our stores. In both cases, we always make sure that we always really up-to-date equipment to this doctor. We make sure that all the best of the technology that is out there in the market, is present in this practice with a very convenient price. This equipment can be very, very expensive. You can have an optomap, you will know better than me. You can have a drum, this refraction, digital refraction equipment, and so on, visual field, and all this stuff. To set up a practice can be a challenge, mainly for a new grad that, has to also to repay a loan. joining LensCrafter, they can have all this technology in a very beautiful stores with a very good position in the community with a very affordable price. Everything is included in the list. Also, it's important to say that you will never feel alone in LensCrafter because this doctor is going to join a huge community. We have more than 800 sublease doctors and more than 300 employed. So the community is very, very big. When I say 800, is the sublease holder, but in each practice of this sublease holder, there are other doctors. Probably you can multiply the 800 probably by 2. So we're talking 1,000 doctors that are part of this community. They will receive all newsletter. We have a moment that we come along together, and so on and so forth. And also, we are a leading player of all the major industry events. I know that I'm talking. Many of them are in the United States, but I also know that the majority of doctors that I know from Canada, they used to join it when we were talking about AOA, when you're talking about Academy, Vision Expo East and West. Everyone are coming there to understand where the industry is going. In all of these, we are always a leading player. So it's a solid company that invests money to making sure that we are providing an high quality eye care. You can join a huge community of doctors, so you can be up to date and can be part of it, and you can have a leading position in all major industry events.
In the terms of making sure the profession continues to grow, of course, what you've described there is a setting for an optometrist to grow and to pursue their career, to be part of a community. That's all. It's nice for in that sort of that individual optometrist sort of perspective. But when we're looking across the entire country, for example, with various challenges that are happening, such as in Ontario with their negotiations with their with the government there and things like that. How would you say LensCrafters is elevating the profession or strengthening the profession of optometry in those types of situations?
Yeah, this is a very good point. Okay, and the example that I always use to share is the following. Today, if you want to be an independent doctor and you are a new grad, or it is not gonna be easy. You have a lease, you need to build the practice, or you have capex investment. You need to keep your practice, up to date, always beautiful, showcasing who you are. So you need to maintain this practice. You need to have personal people working for you. And then it depends if you want to just be a doctor, just an eye care practice, or also selling spectacle product out there. Situation is even more complicated. You need to manage, let me say, a back office, and not just about people, but you need to have also technology instruments to manage the back office. You need to have a website. You need to invest in marketing to be visible in the community. You need to have an EHR, a system to let you manage the practice. You need to have an appointment booking management tool to making sure that you can handle your book in a good way, in a seamless way. All these things are all challenges that when you are a doctor managing your practice by yourself, this can be a scratch head, a headache, instead joining and let me say a big optical retailer like, I don't want to say corporation because we are not, and then probably we will touch later on this point, but a big organization like LensCrafter, you can have a lot of these things with a very affordable sublease contract. You are already joining a company that has a strong equity in the community. You have a company that is already giving you a practice that is remodeled, is fresh with equipment and everything. You already have a system and back office. Today, if you have any kind of equipment or instruments that is not working, is on the independent, is on the practice that should make sure that this is working. We have all back office, contact centers, eye care operation teams that are, backing our doctor community to making sure that they can be always up and running in a good way. Of course, nobody's perfect. You can have area of improvements. But in terms of operative model, we always try to serve our doctor community in the best way possible. And the service level is pretty good.
You touched on the word corporate or corporation, and that actually was going to be the next question I was going to ask you. Is there's from when I was in school, and I know it's from prior years as well, but it always starts, the conversation starts to happen while you're in optometry school, of this division between independent and corporate optometry. I'd like to hear your thoughts on what do you think, if you could define each of those, and then where does the LensCrafters model fall in that?
Yeah. What I'm going to say probably could be, it's a pretty straightforward, it could be strong. I think this definition is one of the most confusing definition that is in the industry. I joined this industry, I'm a managerial engineer, I'm an engineer, and I spent most of my life in consulting. Then during my professional life, I joined Luxottica, and then I started looking after this optical retail business, first in Australia and then here. So basically, on a later age, I got in contact with this definition. Okay, and it's confusing because you have a corporate and independent. Okay, normally, what do we mean with this? Is corporates are all the, let me say, the big operator, the optical retail chain. That's the overall definition that majority of the people land on. And then you have the independent that are the single doctor with his own practice and so on and so forth. Let me say, it's just a way to define something. Okay, if this is the definition, it's pretty clear. But where I really focus on is what do we want to mean, with the corporate big retail chain and an independent. And even if all of us, have the interest to define what type of eye care, service are we providing to the community. So then it's worth to understand and clarify. So for me, let me say, the important thing, and any kind of definition that we use, is to make sure that the doctor is independent in the sense that he can manage, he can execute his profession in the best way possible without any condition. That's the way, because you need to provide an eye care service to the community, and this should not be influenced by anything else. You should be independent. Okay. If instead you are part of, you are employed, okay, in an organization, okay, you should make sure, okay, that you are this independent. You are executing your job in a way, that you are still providing this service to the community. In LensCrafter, to keep our life easy, we have both of them. To be honest, the majority, more than 800 stores, have this sublease model. What does this mean? And for me, it's one of the best ones, because you have an independent sublease doctor that is operating in his own practice as an independent. So he's not influenced at all by any sales coming from the product and material, because he's not sharing any profit from the product and material. He's just operating next to LensCrafter, okay, for all the things that I told you before. He made his own, decision and say, I want to join LensCrafter. It's a strong brand. I can have traffic over there. They invest in marketing for me. They give me all these eye care operation tools that I can operate my practice. I think it's good to go there, but he's an independent. It's nothing to do with us. And this is basically the model that we have in Canada. In basically United States, we have majority as sublease, but we have also, in employed doctors. When it comes to the employed doctors in United States, we really strive with the continuous improvement, with the continuous learning, with the process and procedures to make sure that whatever is happening on the other side of the business, okay, the doctor is focused on the eye care. There is no difference in terms of equipment. The equipments are the same. There is no difference in terms of the time that we dedicate to the patient in an employed stores or in a sublease stores. all the metrics and KPIs, when you look at it, they are very much comparable. And we are really obsessive to make sure that these KPIs on both channels are very aligned. Because what we want is to provide an high quality eye care. But personally, I think the sub-lease model really can remove any kind of doubt, because you are just providing the best of the eye care, backed by strong operator, so that can provide the best on eyewear.
What's up, guys? I just wanted to take a minute to give our exclusive partner for the 2020 podcast, The Future of Optometry series, a shout out here, Aequus Pharma. Aequus is a Canadian pharmaceutical company with a simple mission: scour the globe for the best products and make them accessible to Canadian ECPs. The Evolved Intensive Gel is an artificial tear containing more drops per bottle than any other brand its size. Each drop is 28 microliters, which is the optimal volume for coating the eye without overflow. Its triple action formula contains sodium hyaluronate at the patient-preferred concentration of 0.2%, pure glycerol, which helps to support the lipid layer of the tear film, which is excellent for MGD patients, and cross-linked carbomer 980 that binds moisture to the ocular surface and extends the drop's residency time. As important as what's in the drop is what is not in the drop. The Evolve Intensive Gel is preservative and buffer-free, avoiding phosphates and citrates, which have been shown to sensitize the human conjunctival and corneal cells. So why do ECPs love partnering with Aequus? Because they don't sell directly to patients, nor can their products be found in drugstores or at grocers or on Amazon. Patients can only purchase directly from your clinic or your website. Recommending ECP exclusive brands helps to support our profession, helps to build your practice, keeps your margins healthy, and keeps patients within your continuum of care. There has never been a better time to evolve your practice. To request your product samples, contact your Aequus rep today by emailing contact@aequuseyecare.ca. That's AEQUUS eyecare.ca. And don't forget to put the 2020 podcast in the subject line so they know you heard about them right here. And now back to this episode of the Future of Canadian Optometry series here on the 2020 podcast, Canada's #1 optometry podcast, presented by Aequus Pharma. I would say obviously the definition is implying something, right? Especially the way that it was always kind of presented to us in school. And the implication is that the corporate optometry is the less desirable route, or the kind of the evil corporations will set you up that way. And the understanding or the implication is that they are determining how you practice. They are determining how many patients you see, and I know in some organizations, from what I understand, anyways, that is the case. How many patients you see, how much time you spend on each patient. I'd like to know your thoughts on that, and is that something that generally the LensCrafters perception on that?
Yeah, of course. I have to be very honest. I spoke with our independent doctors, and then we look at our business, as a LensCrafter. I think the number of exams, there are two things, to answer. There are two answers for your question. Okay, the first one is the availability of the doctor. Okay, and is the access to the care. If you ask me, I think that considering how important is the access to the care, everybody, independent, corporate, hybrid model like LensCrafter, we have sub-lease and we have corporate. Okay, everybody should strive to increase the access to the care. If there is someone in the community that need an eye exam, he should be in the position, in the condition to have an eye exam. Okay, 7 days, 7 days. Okay, that's it. That's what, let me say, the goal where I try to strive to give access to the care to the community as much as possible, every day of the week. Of course, how we can achieve this is a little bit different, because you cannot have a doctor. If you want to provide an high quality eye care, you cannot have a doctor 7 days a week, 10 hours a day. That's unfair. That's no good. This doctor is tired. He is not in the best position to provide, an high quality service. So you need to organize your practice in a way that you can maximize the access to the care and making sure that you can guarantee your people a good work-life balance and to keep them fresh and relaxed to provide the best service. So one is access to the care. The other one is the productivity and the way you want to execute your practice. I think that we are pretty much aligned. And there are practices that used to see 10, 12 people in a day, peak days, and there are practices that on average used to see from 5 to 8. But at the end of the day, if you have a doctor in the room managing 12 exams along the day, is a fair amount of exams to provide a good quality eye exam and also manage, the productivity to keep, let me say, sort of financial stability, also for an independent practice. I think between 12, 15 is something that is very fair to manage.
You mentioned you'd spent some time in Australia. Was it 5 years you said? Was it more than?
I've been there from 2017 until 2020.
I see, yeah. So the big elephant in the room these days in Canada is Specsavers, and the splash that they've made in the last 10 to 12 months or whatever it is since they've made their entrance here in BC. And a lot of the impetus for it wasn't directly because of Specsavers, but a lot of the impetus for this conversation and these conversations that we're having are due to the second order, third order effects that have kind of happened. Some organizations, recruiting harder ODs and staff and poaching of ODs from other places, things that are happening sort of in response to these waves that are being made. And a lot of ODs, all of us essentially across the country are a little bit on edge. Like, what is this going to mean for the profession? What is it going to look like 10 years from now? And we try to look to other markets, obviously, where changes like this have happened, where Specsavers has come in. Of course, they originated in the UK, but Australia was the market where we know that they really made a big impression, if we want to use a diplomatic word. I'd like to hear your thoughts as much as you're comfortable sharing from your time in Australia. How do you know, or what do you understand of the market changing in the period of time after Specsavers entered?
Yeah, in Australia, I was looking after the OPSM chain. In Australia, you have OPSM and you have Lomond and Pant. Is a really the two historical optical retail chains in this market. And when Specsaver came into the market, I was not there, of course, because I came later on. What I've been told is that they made the promise to the market: we open 100 stores in 100 days. That this was the call to actions that they opened, this campaign, this journey in Australia, and they made it. They did really a great job. They went there and they opened it practice. They respected exactly the timeline of what they did. Okay. About how they operate, of course, I cannot comment. I cannot say anything. Okay, everybody are out there trying to do their best for what they can. But how much, when it comes to any kind of effect that you may have from, let me say, the coming of an operator like Specsaver into the market, these effects are completely in the hand of the doctor. The doctors have 100% the power to make this phenomenon big, disruptive, or just nothing, because Specsaver, like all of us, they need doctor, and the only way that they can be successful if the doctor going that way. So it's a little bit interesting, the dynamic, because you see doctor very scared about this, but then I don't know if they will be successful like Australia. I don't know that. But in case they will be in that scenario, will be exactly the doctor that will allow this. It's not interesting, this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So the only thing that I can say that the doctor have the power. They should understand exactly what they're going to do, you know, and then make their choice. You know, you cannot eat the cake and have it.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. We're optometrists are demanding we want the cake and we want to eat it too. That's just the way we work. So, you've talked about the importance of the eye exam. One of the questions that I'm asking everybody is, how do we create the perception of value through the eye exam service? How do we leave a patient feeling that that eye exam was worth the amount of money that they paid, hopefully beyond or exceeding the amount of money that they paid? In your opinion, what have you seen on that side of the business and the eye exam from the eye doctor's perspective? How do we create that value?
So there are two key elements, I think, on this point. The first one, which is your first point, the perception. So, and this is really based on the awareness that the people have about the site, about the eye care. So, in a world where the industry uh, becomes a sort of commodity, and there are many operators that really go in that direction. It's just about price. It's just about cheap. It's just about put a spectacle on the face of people, because that with the price that they have, they cannot afford all the extra cost to provide an high quality eye care. So the more we go in a world where the industry becomes a commodity, the more, of course, the customer don't see the value on an eye exam. The more instead we all together play, and communicate as much as possible in the industry, as a word of mouth, when a customer, a patient is in the doctor room, in any kind of magazine of the industry, how important is to take care of your eyes, how much you can discover about your health testing and have an eye test. I don't remember, probably something like 80, 90 different type of disease. You are a doctor, you know better than me, can be discovered just inspecting the eye. So you can save life having an eye exam, So the more we are able to let the patient, in their interest, in their interest, they know that they should have an annual exam. They know that it's important to have an annual exam for their safety, for their health, and they take care, of the eye like they take care of the teeth. You go to the dentist probably every month, every 8 weeks, every 3 months. There are many people that don't visit an optometrist every year. And this is something that all of us we need to work. So if we do a good job in letting everybody understand how important is the annual eye exams and how important is to inspect your eye, not only for the good side, of course, is the main things, but for many other things. So then the more the customer has the attitude, to approach the eye exams and strive and look for an high quality eye exam. So he's also willing, if he has to pay more, because he understands the value. I've been in practice where the customer has been moved across the pre-test and test, across 6, 7, 8 different equipment without him telling anything. He doesn't see any value. So we spend time in LensCrafters explaining what an optomat is. What are we doing with vision field? What does this mean when I'm doing a refraction? We spend time after the eye test, the doctor spend time with the patient to understand, hey, that's the overall situation. That's where you are. Let him understand the situation about his health and his eye. So the more we do that, the more he's willing, to pay, and so on and so forth. And the more is then the second question, the feeling. Do I feel, good enough? Is it worth the money that I spend? Honestly, it's back to the first point. When you have a good expectation, then you can evaluate if this expectation is fulfilled. And then you can make a choice, not just only based on the price. Oh, very good deal. I didn't pay anything. You can make a choice on price and on service. You create the feeling later on. And then if you are in the world where everybody understands the importance to take care of their eye, so then people are willing and open to pay if you are a good operator in the community and you are providing a high quality service. So then the competition is on the service rather than on the price.
Mm-hmm. I think many of us understand or appreciate the fact that if it's a race to the bottom, if it's a matter of commoditizing and lowering the price, it's ultimately going to devalue the service or the perception of the service. But on the flip side, I'm curious to hear what you think about if you do have a patient in front of you who values the service that they are getting. They understand that we can potentially find these multitudes of diseases, and the service provider, the clinic, provides a very high quality eye exam with all of the things that you mentioned, the technology, the education aspect. On the low end, you could go all the way down to $0 and give an eye exam for free, right? But on the high end or the other end, it doesn't have to be at the very high end. How much do you think a provider with that high quality comprehensive eye exam should be charging?
Look, Canada, it's a little bit different. In US, we have the insurance, so there is a copay, and even there is a word about the copay. How much should be the copay? How much are you charging? And even there, it depends. Okay, I give you an example like lawyer. With the same lawsuit, okay, you can visit 10 lawyers asking the same service, but you can go from someone that is pretty much zero or very cheap to someone that is huge and super expensive. They both have the degree, they both are lawyers, they both can practice, but you have a choice, because you have a clear expectation. Same things when you go to a doctor, to any kind of specialist, there is any kind of price. So I think that then the price in a specific practice should be made by the doctor. He knows what he's offering and is able to explain. But with that said, I want to also give you an answer based on what I think, making the conversation general. So how much you can charge, you have the best interest. You know what are you doing, the service they're providing. You can define a price. So you should be free to charge whatever you want as a doctor. But I think, on average, pretest, optomat, and eye test in the range of $100, it's a fair price.
Your example of a lawyer, I think that's interesting. An analogy is relevant, because we also I think many of us have the perception that lawyers maybe overcharge sometimes. So we can kind of appreciate that there is got to be a balance in there somewhere. But let's say I gave you the example of a lawyer, same lawsuit like you just said. One lawyer charges $50 an hour and the other charges $300 an hour. What would your perception of their work be?
I think this one. So on a like-for-like base, let me say this. So if you are providing an OCT, if you are providing, it should be like-for-like. You can have an eye test working in, you just go in a pre-test having just a refraction, and then you go in, you do the eye test and you are out. You charge $50. So you need to understand what are you buying, So on a like-for-like base, with the same level of, charge, you cannot grow 600 times, 50 bucks, and then you go to 300. That's unfair. This is not good. In a like-for-like basis, it's not acceptable. And most likely, the $300 doctor is not going to have a big follower in the community on a like-for-like base. But then you need to understand what are you offering, because if 50 bucks, you are having a very basic eye exam, you're just getting into the doctor room, very basic pre-test, and then you go to the refraction, a few minutes, and you get out. But on the other side, you walk through a deep pre-test examination. So you go there, you go through the visual field, you go to the auto refraction, you go to the optomap, you have an OCT, then you have a slit lamp, and so on and so forth. So you are having a really comprehensive exam. So then, I don't know if you can reach the 300, but you can for sure double, or you can 100 or 150 compared to the other one.
Yeah. Well, I use the lawyer example because I wanted to make it dramatically different. Because, yeah, and you're right, in an eye exam case, it wouldn't be 6 times the difference, but most likely. But more so, the question was, because you assume from the outside before you've met them or before you've gone through the due diligence that they provide a similar service. Would you perceive one to be potentially the higher cost one to be potentially providing a more diligent, more comprehensive service versus the one that's lower fee?
And it's back to the awareness, So if you ask a potential patient, what is an OCT, what is an optomap, what is, a slit lamp, what are the benefits of this stuff, we are not doing a good job. We are really creating a good condition for the 50 buck, not giving anything. So commoditization. Mm-hmm. I totally agree with you. So the patient is confused, and the price becomes a key element, to define where you go. But it's because of the industry commoditization. That's the main issue. We need to spend time with the patient in the community, let them understand what are you buying, Because otherwise, it's like the guy that is going around in Ferrari, and the guy with the bicycle coming next to him and say, "How much did you pay for this stuff to go around?" He said, $200,000. I said, "How much you pay for your stuff to go around?" $200. And the guy felt frustrated. Says, "How is it possible?" He didn't realize that it's in Ferrari. It's completely different stuff. You know what I mean? So we need to work more. We need to create more awareness about what is a comprehensive eye exam. What really are the services that you should expect? What the different tests that you have, can really give to you. So then, when you go there, you don't see many steps of this journey. You don't see many information that you should collect. Yeah, it's true, 50 bucks, but mainly when it comes to yourself, to the people you love, the 50 bucks or 100 or 150 bucks is not a life change. If you can provide, you can feel confident that your son, your daughter, it's high, are perfect, you don't have any issue. So awareness is very important. So we need to make sure that we let the industry step really far out from the commoditization.
One of the things that you touched on right at the very beginning of the conversation that I was hoping to bring back to you now was the technology. And you mentioned telehealth. I'd like to get your thoughts on what technology should we see coming forward, and how is it going to impact the way we perform an eye exam? How is it going to impact the optometrist's job and position as the eye care provider?
Yeah, that's a great, really great question. So the point in my point of view is the following. Okay, the current condition, okay, is creating the ground field, a very favorable ground field for a growth of the teleoptometry. Back to what we said before, we have 1,700 doctors into the market. We have 1,016 that are leaving the industry because they retire. There is a work-life balance. There are more doors, more rooms coming into the market. So, of course, the connection, physical connection between a doctor and a room is going to be an issue. It's going to be an issue because you have more rooms, less doctors. How can this can happen? So for sure, the technology is giving a highway, and I'm in favor under certain conditions that I'm gonna share with you. So it's really creating a highway to break this link between the physical doctor and the physical room, putting a doctor remote that can cover more room. You are increasing the access to the care. You are making this care more available to more communities, and you are supporting the demand. The point is that we need to be very careful to not to create a jungle. Because under the world of teleoptometry, you can find lots of things. This can be a teleoptometry between me. It's a video conference teleoptometry. So in EssilorLuxottica and in LensCrafters, we have the first chain in the group that we are testing this suite. We have built, a really an end-to-end suite with all the equipments integrated in the same environment under a very restricted protocols, that is very aligned with the comprehensive eye exams, because this is what we strive for, comprehensive eye exams. So in that case, the doctor is remote, but he has all the information to take and prescribe a pair of glasses or take any kind of medical decision.
How far is that from AI taking that? Like if via remote or virtual apparatus, we're able to collect all the data, how many steps is it until artificial intelligence takes that optometrist seat to just kind of compile the data and give a result?
Because now we're in a situation where the doctor is remote, the patient must be in the practice. That's where we are now. If I understand what you asked, you say how far we are from both can be remote. Is that the question?
How far are we from the doctor potentially not being part of the equation?
That's impossible. I had the opportunity to spend a few years now in this industry, Australia then and here. The eye is so complex. And it's even not just these. You need really to make sure that you are analyzing these patient and you are executing the subject interview with the patient, asking questions, to him and interacting to him, and ask a following question based on the first question that he asked, and many venue can be opened when you are doing the exam, and that's only a human being with experience that can reach this kind of quality. We are all different from another. And even if you are very close to another one, we are different in terms of everything is different in terms of age or lifestyle, or I strongly believe that an algorithm can never substitute the doctor. I don't know in 100 years, but in the upcoming
100 years.
In upcoming 20, I don't think that in 20 years we can have an artificial intelligence that can substitute the doctor.
Okay. The other thing that we touched on earlier was the demand. We touched on that a fair bit about the demand, the lack of supply of optometrists. Again, part of what sort of the impetus for this whole series of conversations was that there is a shortage, or there's a demand is actually the real word that I'm looking for optometrists, and so there's a kind of a mad scramble right now to recruit current optometrists or new graduate optometrists, and part of that is some incentive programs that have been rolling out with certain organizations. Whether it's what's the right word? Signing bonuses or large salaries to work in certain locations, or forgivable loans from some organizations. And it all looks very lucrative and glamorous for that new optometrist. But my question to you is, based on all of that, do you think that that new optometrist is really the person with leverage, looking at all of these incentives in front of them and making a decision based on where they, based on those incentives? Is that new grad the person with the leverage, or is it that these corporations are potentially clouding this optometrist decision and their career path, and potentially the long-term, there could be long-term implications to those decisions?
Yeah, let me say this one. So I think that the market, as you correctly said, is distressed. So there is a strong demand of doctor. Okay, everyone wants doctors, and this is a general market rule. The more the demand is strong, the more the price go high. It's a matter of fact. We cannot do anything. That is what it is. It's a sort of input for us. What we need to look for is a fair market value. Okay, so when there is a fair market value there, that's the fair market value to operate, and that's what you have to do. Of course, then is a chain. The $50 cannot be anymore the $50. The $50 becomes 60 or 70 or 80. So at the end of the day, it's a sort of spiral that closes on itself. So the more everything go up, the more the service is going to go up, the more the people has to pay, and this is what it is. So these are money, This is market. This is a condition that is creating there. But how much this one can influence the decision of a new grad? Again, I don't see the risk, because it's the same stuff when the profession was much cheaper. You graduated yourself, you couldn't make it up. You can get $100. There is someone that can give you 120. So you were moving from 100, 120. Now the situation is much worse. You start from 200, doubling. I make it up. You're moving from 200 to 250. But it's the same. So the mindset of the doctor is exactly the same. Money is money. These people are living they're just out of the school. They have to repay the loan. Of course, they need to take the best decision for their, in their interest from a financial standpoint. They need to repay the loan. They need to start building their life. They need to grow and be successful in their life. So I don't think that this can influence the way can influence more or less the way our doctor used to take a decision, and now they're taking decisions. So I make it up. And if a doctor would like to be an independent, okay, and he was striving for this, he's going in that direction. No matter if before you could have $100 10 years ago, and now you are getting 200. That's what you want to do. You go there. I don't think that this is something different from what it used to be. But then if you are independent, you know that if you need a doctor operating in your practice, you pay more. So you have to ask more money. I don't think that this one can really influence the way how the doctor will operate. It's a market condition. It is what it is. There is not the market that is on 100. An operator in the market is offering 500. So then, yes, then this can, influence the potential decision of a doctor. But if everyone are on 500, that you move from 490 to 510,
yeah,
it is what it is.
So let's go a little earlier on in that the educational timeline. If we rewind a little further to a student who is kind of like how you were talking about earlier, potentially thinking about going into optometry or evaluating their options in the healthcare fields, what advice would you give to that person regarding optometry?
Do it. Honestly, do it. In this moment, I think that is one of the best choice that a young student can do. 100%. There is no other industry so healthy like the optical industry. 100%. So just do it. It's good for him. It's good for us. It's good for the patient. There is a strong demand out there. So really just do it.
And finally, the last question I want to ask you, Alfonso, is any other words of wisdom or any other thoughts or insights that you have regarding the profession, regarding optometry from your time in the industry that you'd like to share with the viewers and listeners?
I think that the doctor in the industry, of course, in this industry, in the optical industry, they are the main player. Okay, most of the time they don't come together. You know, to listen the view and the voice of the doctor sometimes is not easy. You know, instead, I think they are a strong community. In a certain way, they should strive to make easier to understand the needs. So then all the operators, can really act in the direction to support them. You know, uh, they are amazing. They are the main player. Without the doctor, the industry is not there. Without everything starts from an eye exams. Everything starts from a prescription. That's what it is. So it's the number one player of the industry. The point that I personally have experienced is that being someone that really want to listen to the doctor and play in their favor sometimes it's not easy. There are lots of different interests, and you cannot go bold on few things. You should do probably a lot of more soft things in order to making sure that you can make everyone, or as many as possible, happy. So I'm very happy about this kind of initiatives. So I can listen, I can learn which are the main concern. So I personally, in my little space in the industry, I can take in consideration of it, but then also the other can take in consideration all these needs. And if we are all aligned, we are all moving in the directions that that the doctors are looking for.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think that is one of the messages that I'm hoping to share throughout this series of conversations, is that the doctors have the power, the doctors have the ability to make certain decisions, they have the ability to direct the profession the way we would like it to go and grow and thrive in the future. I think it's just up to us to take that control of that, take the reins, and make those decisions, and not leave it up to certain other players who may not have optometry's best interests at heart. So I appreciate you sharing that, Alfonso. Thank you very much. And thanks again for joining me on the 2020 podcast for the Future of Optometry series. I hope you get a chance to listen to the other conversations. I think they're going to be really valuable if you get a chance to tune into those as well.
Please share me everything, the links. I really enjoy to listen to the others. Okay, so I can understand how far I am from the others.
Yeah, I think that'll be actually a good learning experience for everybody to kind of tune into each other's conversations. I agree.
That's great. I really thank you for that. Thank you for hosting me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. And thank you everybody who's been watching and listening. This is the 5th episode out of the 6 episodes in the Future of Canadian Optometry series here on the 2020 podcast, Canada's #1 optometry podcast. I'll see you in the 6th and final episode in a couple of days. All right, guys. So there it was. That was the 5th of the 6 interviews that I conducted for the Future of Optometry series presented by Aequus Pharma here on the 2020 podcast, Canada's #1 optometry podcast, with Mr. Alfonso Cerullo, president of LensCrafters. And as he mentioned, that means he oversees Canada, the USA, and Puerto Rico, a very large demographic, a very large geographical area, a very large brand. So I hope you were able to take away some useful insights from what Alfonso had to share. And, again, whether you feel it's positive or negative, I think it's all very important that we take this information and we use it for the betterment of our profession, working towards growing our profession in the long term. And don't forget, there's one more episode. This was the 5th. The last episode, the 6th episode, is coming up in a few days with Dr. Carrie Salzberg. I wanted to round out this whole series of interviews with a conversation with a successful independent optometrist, and Carrie definitely fits the bill. And Carrie will share some very candid insights into what we need to do as optometrists to make sure that our profession succeeds. And again, if you haven't heard some of the previous interviews, please go back and check them out. They're going to live on the internet forever. So whether you're on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you like to listen or watch, go back and check them out. And please give me your feedback. I'd love to hear your thoughts. There's a chance that I'll have some of these guests back on again in the future. So if there's something you think I missed, I want to go back and ask them again down the road. And as always, don't forget to share this with your friends. Send a text message, put it on LinkedIn, put up a screenshot on Instagram, and I will see you guys in the next episode.